Hi, my name is Mira, and in this video I'm going to be explaining abstract classes. So let's get started. First of all, I'll start off with the basic concept of an abstract class. So say that you were writing an essay. You might want to start out with an outline, right? And you would say you have an introduction, a body paragraph, and a conclusion. But you would not have the content of those paragraphs. Or you might say there's a title, but you don't know what the title is. So that outline is what an abstract class is like. So more specifically, an abstract class is a superclass that represents an abstract concept, right? So it's not, you don't know all the details of the concept, but you know the basic idea. In the abstract method, you have in the abstract class, you have abstract methods. So these are methods with no implementation code, just a header, right? So in the case of an outline in an essay, it would be introduction, but you would not have the content of the introduction. You would just say introduction. So these methods have the header and parameters, but they do not have any content implementation code. An abstract class may include four things. Obviously, it can have abstract methods. It can have instance variables, so even though you don't fill in the content of abstract method, you can have an instance variable that you set, such as like public string abstract, right? So you can make those, and then you can have concrete methods as well. So you can have abstract methods, but you can also have methods that you do have implementation code. And then you can also have constructors. So constructors are like how you might create an object, right? It's the method that you would call to create an object. But no, constructors are not necessary in any or all abstract classes. So here's how we create an abstract class. First of all, it must be defined as an abstract class in the title. So here we have public abstract class, right? But this is the key word. It must be defined there. Let's go on to subclasses. So a subclass extends a superclass, or the abstract class, right? So if we think back to the outline and essay example, subclass would be an essay, right? So it would have more detailed topic and filled in, right? But it extends the outline. It takes shape of an outline. So in a subclass, you must provide implementation code for all abstract methods of its superclass, right? So in the outline, you have an introduction paragraph, but you just have the title, right? And then in a subclass or in the essay, you fill that out. You put the content in. So that is what the subclass must do. You also cannot instantiate abstract classes in a subclass. So in this example, say someone created an abstract class called shape. You cannot say shape A equals new shape because shape is an abstract class. It doesn't actually have all the content it needs. You can create an instance of a subclass that extends an abstract class, right? So I can say shape C equals new circle because shape is an abstract class and circle is a subclass that extends that abstract class. Okay, here's how we create a subclass. So first of all, it must extend your abstract class, right? So you have public class. Notice that there's no abstract here. Extends your abstract class. You can also have a subclass that is an abstract class. So this is a little bit more complicated. It's still an abstract class, but it also extends an abstract class. So, for example, if I had an outline and I have the general idea of an outline, and then I say that I want to be a little more specific, and I say I want it to be a science essay. So I include a little bit of what might be in a science essay. So I'd say there might be a hypothesis or a research question. I might add a little bit more to that outline, but I still wouldn't fill in all of those abstract methods or paragraphs from the original outline or abstract class. Then I could take that abstract class and create a subclass, the essay, in which I would actually fill everything out. So that outline in between, when I define it as a science outline, but still just an outline, is a subclass that's also an abstract class. Okay, so let's try an example. So if we open Android Studio, we can name this abstract classes. Okay. Okay. Oh goodness. Okay. From here we can first we want a new job class, right? And we'll call this, let's call it vehicle. Let's do this in terms of a vehicle. So here we said public class, but I'm going to specify that it's an abstract class, right? So this is all okay. And then from there, just a minute, add more space. From that vehicle, I'm going to say, let's say that for every vehicle, I want a brand. So I'm going to say public, let's make it a string, brand. So that is a concrete variable, right? Let's say I also want color, so public character color, right? And I can define, I can off the side say like, oh, I'm going to use R for red, W for white, etc. Like I can choose whatever I want, but that doesn't need to be in the code. That's just for me to reference. Additionally, let's say I want to say like the acceleration. So I'll do public, we'll do in seconds, 0 to 60. So this would be the number of seconds that it takes to get a car from 0 to 60. And then for this, when I implement this code, I might want to say that I want a public boolean z to 60, and I'm going to say this is not this has not been defined yet, so it's false. I'm saying that I want a number of wheels. So this is just the setup of how I want to define a vehicle, right? So then let's say I also want a private variable, the price, because I don't want that out and about, right? Okay, so from there, let's say, in this case, I'm going to create a constructor because it will make creating a vehicle easier. So I'll say public vehicle. Do I want parameters? Let's say that to create a vehicle, you need to know the brand and how many wheels it has, right? Because a motorcycle might have 2 wheels, whereas a car has 4. A semi-truck has it might be an 18-wheeler, right? So we'll say that you want the brand, and then you also want the number of wheels. So right now, it's looking pretty much like a normal class, right? Except for this abstract place. Right, so here I can say this brand equals brand, right? That'll initialize my brand. And I also want to say that this wheels equals wheels, right? So that's just the constructor. Then I would go on to say what classes or what's the outline of this, right? So not every vehicle is going to have the same price, right? So I want to say public abstract double, and we want this to return a double. We'll say calculate price. So for this, I'm not going to give it any parameters, and I also don't need to do anything with it, right? So I can just put a semicolon, and that defines that I need to create a method called calculate price in any subclasses for this, but I don't need to define it here. Okay, let's say I also want to public abstract. I want to set the 0 to 60. Okay, we'll call it set 0 to 60. Okay, and let's say we're actually given a parameter. We'll call it. Oh, sorry. It's a public integer. Okay, we're given a parameter. Let's say it's acceleration. But I'm still not going to define this, right? So I can have a parameter right there, but I don't need to define it. I'm also going to set some concrete methods, right? So those I've set some instance variables. I've set a constructor. I've set abstract methods, and now I'm going to set some concrete methods. So we'll say the color, public, and we don't need to return anything, but we'll just set the color, right? And then we're given a character, right? Because we are defining that in a character up here. And we'll say this dot color equals color. Okay, pretty simple, straightforward. Let's say we also want to set the price. Public void set price, right? So we don't really need to return anything. We're just saying what we're doing, right? And in this case, you just want to be able to call the superclass, call your abstract class to do this for you. It's the same for everything, right? And this especially works for things that are private, right? So I can't say, I can't directly go into here. I need a method to access it, right? So then I say this dot price. Oh goodness. This dot price equals price. Okay, great. And then we'll do one last thing, because this is a private variable. We want a way to access it. So we'll say public double get price. And we'll just return the price, right? So I don't need a new line for this. It's pretty straightforward. Great. So now we have an abstract class. We have, these are the things that I must fill in for any subclasses, right? Okay, so let's create a new job class. So what's the type of vehicle? Let's use a motorcycle. Okay, so motorcycle. Hopefully I spelled that right. And then we're going to say that this extends the vehicle, right? So now this is going to give me an error, right? And why? Because I need to implement these methods, right? So I can hit Alt Enter and then enter and enter again, and they'll put in these methods. So I need to now create these methods, right? So, but before I fill in those methods for how I actually want not to return 0, let's create a constructor. So we'll create public motorcycle, and say you want to be given the brand, right? Because when we call the Superclass constructor, you need a brand and the number of wheels, right? So here we can then actually call the Superclass or the abstract class immediately here. So super, and then remember the first one was brand, and then the second parameter was wheels. And for a motorcycle, we know there's 2, right? So now we have a constructor already built. Say, for calculating price, how do you want to do this? Well, we could say we want to calculate price based on the 0 to 60 speed. So this would only work if the 0 to 60 has already been set, right? So that's why when we go back to the vehicle, that's why I put a boolean here, so we can check if that 0 to 60 has been set or not. So we can say if it has not been set, if it has been set, so if super dot z to 60, if it hasn't set, then here is our code, right? So we say super dot set price, right? It tends to be better to give a method than directly change it, right? So we'll say super set price, and how do we want to set this price? Well, a faster pickup, we'd say, let's say 15 minus that 0 to 60 speed, right? This dot 0 to 60, okay? So that gives it this, and then how much do we want to value the pickup speed? Let's say 1.5k. So there's just the pickup speed part of the price, and then we can give it a baseline price of 40,000. From there, I've set the price, and since this is a double, we're going to return super.getPrice. Okay, and then of course this is only if 0 to 60 has been set, right? So otherwise we can just say that we return 0, right? And so if someone gets a price of 0, obviously it's not going to be a free car or motorcycle. Okay, so that's fine. Let's go on to the 0 to 60. So how this is setting it, right? And I'm given the acceleration, right? So what is this acceleration in units of? We can just say how fast it can pick up. So we'll just call this the 0 to 60. So we'll say super, because I don't want to make this too complicated, super 0 to 60 equals acceleration. Okay, super simple. And then we want to return the super dot 0 to 60. Okay, simple. Now we have a whole motorcycle subclass set up. Right, pretty simple. It extends the abstract class, and there's no errors. So let's take this a little bit further. I'm going to create a Java class, okay, and let's call it car, okay. So this is also pretty straightforward. But this one extends vehicle, and again, there's an error, right? So I can implement. These are the methods that I need to now do. let's see, for a car, what do you have? Well, you have a model of a car, right? So we'll say it's a public type, and we'll give it as string. Okay, public string model, and we don't know what that is yet. Let's say there's also a size, right? So like an SUV is a little bit smaller than a minivan, and all these are bigger than like the little sports car, right? So we're going to say private string, and we'll say size. Okay. So in this case, we would have like sizes such as small, medium, large. Okay. So really simple. Doesn't need to be too complicated. Okay. Then since we do have a constructor and vehicle, we're going to make it. We're going to have a constructor here as well. So we'll say public car. That's the constructor. We're given a brand because if I say, well, yeah, any car has a brand. We want to be given the brand. We also want to be given the model. So what model is someone looking at? So here, those are the parameters that we want. From there, your first line must call your superclass constructor, right? So let's say super, and then we're given the brand, right? This above is going to tell me what the parameters are in my vehicle class, right? So brand, and then the number of wheels. Well, how many wheels are on a car? 4, right? Simple. I don't really need to do any calculations there. And then off of that, I also asked for the model, right? So now I just want to set this part as a model. So this dot model equals model. Okay, cool. Now you have a constructor set up. Now I have this, but I don't really know the price for a car itself. So what I'm going to do is, whoops, I'm actually just going to delete that. And I'm going to call this an abstract. Why is my we'll call this abstract. Okay, and we don't need this override. And then the 0 to 60, well, that's going to be specific to each car, right? So we'll get rid of this, and we'll get rid of that. We'll call it an abstract class, public abstract. There. So we don't really know what those are, and we don't need to because this is also an abstract class, right? Okay, so from there, we will, let's say we want to get this size, right? Because we have this variable called size. So we'll say public abstract string set size. So we actually want to be able to set the size in the first place in whatever subclass this has. And from that, we will be given the model. Okay, string model. Okay. Don't need to do anything with that. Then from there, oh, right. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, this is all good. No more errors. Okay. From here, we have the set size. Let's say we want to initialize the size. We can just say public void init size. So this is like you want for each type of like brand, let's say, or type of car, then you want to set what model is what size, right? And then from there, you want to be able to initialize the size and come back here. So we're going to say public void init size, and we're going to be given the size. Oh, goodness. We're given the size. So from there, we know what we want the code is, right? So this size equals size. Simple, don't need much more. And we also want a way to get the size because it's a private variable, right? So we'll say public string get size. Great. You don't need any variables. You don't need any parameters, so we'll just return the size. Awesome. So now we have another abstract class that extends another abstract class, right? So let's create one more class. We'll create, let's call this a Toyota. Pretty popular brand. Okay. Great. So this is a public class, and we're going to say that this extends car, okay, because Toyota is a car. Then we're going to Alt, Enter, and then this will pop up all the abstract methods that we need to fill in. We'll hit enter, and now it gives them to me, lets me know what I need to fill in. So first, let's say it's a Toyota. Maybe you want a variable, is it a hybrid car? So we'll say public boolean hybrid. Ooh, did I say that wrong? Hybrid. And we don't know if it's true or false, so we won't initialize it yet. Then also, of course, we want to create a constructor. So I'll say public Toyota. So that means it's constructor. We want to be given the model, right? So we'd be given the model. Then you're also told if it's a hybrid, right? So boolean hybrid. Great. So from there, now we need to say what's in this. Okay, so we'll say super. Now remember, this wants the brand, and we already know it's Toyota, so we're just going to say Toyota, right? And then from there, we also want the model, and right here, we were given the model up here, so we'll say, we'll just give the model, right? Simple call to constructor. Then from here, we were also given whether it was a hybrid, so we'll set that one, right? So this hybrid equals hybrid. Great, now I've got that started. And we also want to say what size this is, because now that we're given the model, we can figure out what size. So we'll say super dot, and now we want to tell the superclass, the car, what size it is, right? So here we'll say initialize size, actually say set size, and we will give it the model it is, right? So set size is down here. We need to fill it out, but there we go, because that's supposed to return a string, which we can then give to the super class. So from there, let's say we want to calculate the price. Again, we want it based on the 0 to 60 speed. Okay, so we'll say if, and remember, we have a boolean to tell us if it's been initialized or not. So if it is, then we can set the price. Let's say we want to do this in terms of 15 minus the 0 to 60. Okay, so we want to figure out how much we're going to weight that, right? Let's say we'll weight it at, we'll say 2,000 for about the speed, right? And then we'll give it a baseline price, a Toyota car, a baseline price of, we'll say 60,000, which that's a lot, I know, but that's okay. Okay, so now we have a set price, right? And then when we set the price, since this is a double, we also want to return this, right? So we can say return super.get price, right? Because we just set it, now we want to get the price, and we'll return that, right? And then otherwise, we can just return 0, right? Because if someone says the price is 0, probably not going to believe it, right? So that's okay. From there, let's say we want to set the 0 to 60, okay? So to do that, how would we do that? Well, first of all, we're saying that we're going to set it, right? So, and we're given the acceleration. So we'll say super 0 to 60 equals the acceleration, right? We're not going to do anything complicated with that, okay? Then from there, we're going to say, well, we set the 0 to 60, so we're going to say super 0 to 60, that boolean is going to be true. So now we've set it, and then what are we returning? Well, we're not returning 1. We are returning we're not returning 0. We're going to return the actual acceleration, or 0 to 60 speed. So super 0 to 60. So there we go. Now we have a 0 to 60 method. Okay. From there, let's see, what else do we need to do? We need to set the size, right? So this one is a little bit more complicated, so this would be very specific to every single car brand, right? So right now, we're just going to say, we're going to base this off of the model, okay? So if the model, let's say it equals, oh goodness, it equals, and we'll ignore the case. Okay, remember model is a string, so you can't write the equal sign, you need to say equals, and we're going to do ignore case. Let's say it says Sienna, right, because that's a little minivan, or not little, but that's a minivan. we'll call this the large car, or we could say Sequoia. So model, oops, equals, ignore case, and then we'll call it a Sequoia. Oops. Oh my goodness. Okay. So if that's what the model is, then I'm just going to say return, and we're going to call this large. We're just not going to make this complicated, okay? Then we're also going to say, what about a medium-sized car? So we'll say model equals, what type of model is this? We'll do a Venza. Okay? So if it's that, then we're going to say return medium. Oh my gosh. Right. Okay, and we want a small, right? So, oh, this should also say else. Okay, my bad. Then again, we'll say else if, say the model is, okay, or maybe it's a Prius, okay? So we'll say model equals Prius. Great. So these we might call a small car. Small. Great. So that's pretty universal, not too complicated. Now, otherwise, it must return something, right? So if I took this out, then I would likely get an error because I need to have a return, right? So I'm going to say else, return null. Right, so then I am going to for sure return something because it says I need to return a string. Okay, and we can return null for string if it's not one of these 5 models. Okay, so now we have created a subclass that extends an abstract class that's also a subclass that extends an abstract class. And then we've also created, we've already created this abstract class that extends the subclass. So notice here that the motorcycle, we put the implementation code for these 2 abstract methods from here, right? And then these 2 abstract methods. And then for the car, we did that again. So it's calculate price and set 0 to 60. We did that here, but it's still an abstract, so we actually just brought that here, and we added another abstract method. Okay, and then here we put implementation code for all 3 of those abstract methods, right? And then goes to this. Okay, so it's not super complicated. Obviously, you might not be working with cars, but this is the basic idea, and here's where you can really just do anything in an abstract class, and then you can fill out all the little details here and make things more or less complicated. So hopefully that helps you understand what abstract classes are, and go ahead and try it out.